Hi guys, I wanted to share my knowledge about thinking in English, but not only in English, in any foreign language when you're learning a new foreign language. I speak fluently 5 languages. Spanish is my mother tongue, English, Italian. I'm currently living in Italy, so I use Italian every day to speak with my colleagues, with my wife, and I have 2 kids. They're bilingual, they speak Spanish and Italian as mother tongue, and they also study French and English. One thing that you have to take into consideration when you're learning a new language and you want to think in that language is not to think in your own language when you're thinking of a word. Let's suppose, for example, that you have to say apple in another language. You have to visualize the fruit, not the word apple in your language. So when I think of apple, I don't think in Spanish right now, manzana or mela in Italian, okay? I visualize the apple. And it helps a lot because you don't have to think in your own language, you don't have to think of a word in order to say that word in your language. For example, when I was teaching or when I was speaking to my kids when they were very, very little, I didn't say to them, I don't know, if I took, for example, this remote control, I didn't say in Italian that word. I would say the word normally in Spanish. And the same thing their mother did with them. She spoke with them in Italian, okay? I would point, for example, an apple and I say, okay, Nicola, can you bring me that apple? And maybe he didn't know that word in Italian, in Spanish, but I pointed out that apple, and he knew that it was the same thing that maybe her mother was asking him in Italian, mela. So kids, when we're small, when we're little, we don't care about the word. We can call any instrument, any object with different words. It doesn't matter because in our mind we have that object in our mind. So what I mean is to think in object. Thinking in object is the clue in order to speak and learn another language. So don't visualize the word in your language, visualize the object. But of course, if you want to be fluent in a language, you have to increase your vocabulary, you have to practice your pronunciation, you have to learn a little bit of grammar in order to be fluent, in order to build different phrases. For example, let's say that I need to study a different topic that I want to talk about, even in my own language. For example, if you have never heard of economics and you have to talk in your own language about economics, you're not going to be fluent in your own language to talk about that, about the stock market, about actions, about shorting some stocks and things like that, because you don't have that vocabulary in your own language. Or if you have to talk about biology or about the current situation with the coronavirus, okay, because you don't have that vocabulary yourself in your own language. So the first thing that you have to do is to increase your vocabulary. If you already master grammar and pronunciation, you increase that vocabulary. For example, I'm going to share with you what I'm doing right now in order to talk about my life when I was in Cuba. I was born in the countryside, but I don't have enough vocabulary in order to explain when I used to work the land, to plow the land with a plow. I don't know how to say, for example, I didn't know how to say, for example, surco in English. So I went and looked for those words and for articles in the internet that talked about plantations, about cropping, about harvesting. And now I'm creating my own dictionary. Here you can see all the words that I need to talk about corn, that was the main plantation that we had in the countryside and we still have in my neighborhood. Okay, so I have this column here for the English word, some explanation in English, and if I don't find the explanation in English, I would add, for example, a column here in Spanish or in Italian if I happen to find the word in Italian. I could also add it in French, but these are my main 2 languages. So you can see here that I have ear in order to represent the fruit of the corn that we call mazorca in Spanish, okay, or pannocchia in Italian. So, but I don't think about the word pannocchia or mazorca. I'm visualizing right now the object, the fruit, okay? So, here we have kernel is the edible part of the ear, the cob, the silk, there is the hair on top of the ear, and things like that. So I've learned all these words that some of them I didn't know, okay? And also some phrases. For example, I also have this file here for English idioms that I learned while I'm watching a new film. For example, I can show you here now with my TV in my studio. Okay, this is an English film that I can watch without even reading the subtitles because I understand almost 99% of the words. So if I happen to hear a phrase or a word that I don't know, then I take note of that word or that phrase, I look it up, and then I create my own mini dictionary. Okay? So what I advise you to do, if, for example, even if you don't have anyone to talk to, choose a topic that you want to talk about it. Your school, your neighborhood, or economics, or whatever. And begin talking with yourself, looking yourself in the mirror about that topic. And every time that you're stuck because you don't know a word, you're missing a word, you're at a loss for a word, then you take note of that word, and then you repeat it next time until it arrives the moment when you know you're pretty sure what you're doing, okay? For example, if I have to switch now to Spanish and tell you the same thing, I would say, okay, ustedes pueden preparar un argumento en el cual están interesados y empiezan a repetirlo. Si hay alguna palabra que no entienden, pues entonces la copian, buscan el significado y repiten lo mismo. If I were to say the same thing in Italian, allora cercate un argomento di cui parlare, pensate alle parole, cominciate a parlare. Se vi manca qualche parola, allora potete prendere nota, cercare queste parole in un dizionario o su internet e poi ripetete di nuovo quello che stavate dicendo prima in modo tale da finire il discorso. Okay? I could do the same thing in French also. So when you don't have to think in your own language, when you don't have to choose words from your own language in order to express your feelings, it's gonna be faster, okay? So visualize what you're gonna say, the idea or the object, and then the word is gonna come out and you're gonna say it. Those are my advices. Never think in your own language or in any other language other than the language you're speaking, okay? Learn new languages, choose a different topic every time, and try to increase your vocabulary. Also, if you have problem listening to films or series and things like that, then immerse yourself in English, listen every film that you want to watch in English, read books in English, read your newspapers in English. You can look it up online. That's the only way to learn a language. You don't have to travel in order to learn a new language. I was born in Cuba. I have never traveled before when I learned English. I've never been to Italy or to Europe when I learned Italian or French. And I was able to work as a tour guide, okay? And that was a great opportunity. But before that, I would speak also only with my friends, okay? With my classmates and with myself. People would call me crazy because I would go in the middle of the streets speaking in English with myself, okay? Don't be shy. Don't be afraid of speaking. Try to participate in different venues where you can speak in English, and practice. Practice makes the master. See you. Thanks.